speciation we're talking about today. So we've talked about pre-zygotic and post-zygotic barriers, and we'll refer to some of that we're talking about today. But one of the ways in which speciation can occur is through polyploidy. Okay, and polyploidy occurs through errors in meiosis. Yeah. Sorry, too many friends. All right, so there are two different types of polyploidy, or there's multiple types, but these are the two that we're going to talk about. If I have some organisms here, 2n equals 6, what does that mean? Let's do some review here too. If 2n means diploid, all right, has 6 chromosomes when it's diploid, okay? So it has 3 different chromosomes, 2 copies of each. Okay, in order to go through sexual reproduction, what process has to occur? Meiosis, good. So through meiosis, what type of cell will be created? A gamete. And what will be its equivalent? 2n equals 6, it goes through meiosis, now it's n equals 3. Good, 1n equals 3. So now it just has 3 gametes. Okay, if there's an error in meiosis, I gotta make this smaller. And all of the chromosomes go to one side or the other, where you have a polyploid event. Then you can create a haploid gamete which has 6 chromosomes, right? It's supposed to have half, but now it has 6.
That means the other one is empty.
This is a normal one on the left. This one on the right went through the chromosomes didn't separate. They all went in the same direction. So now it has too many in its gamete.
Right, but it splits, right? So we have empty one over 6.
Yeah, and you have an empty one, right? That empty one wouldn't work at all, but. Okay, so if it went through then fertilization, then what would the new diploid organism, how many chromosomes would it have? Not 9. 12. So it doubled its chromosomes. Yeah. If you want to draw 12 of these in here. And now, if it goes through meiosis, I'm running out of arrows here, I can do this. Its gametes will have how many?
6.
Okay, so can it create a hybrid with the original normal gamete? Discuss with your neighbor. Can it create a viable hybrid with its cousin? Okay, but it might be viable, but it will definitely be infertile, right? Because it will be.
Good job, Blake.
All right.
No, we're being serious.
So what's wrong with this? Why is it infertile?
Because it can't split.
I mean, it's,
It can't split even.
it can't split. It has 9, all right? So it'll only go 4 or 5 and 5 or 4, 3 and 6, whatever. It can't split evenly. So this guy is infertile.
But why does that mean it can't be fertile?
Because in meiosis, it can't evenly split those 9
So it
into.
just kind of gets confused.
So some of the gametes will have 4 and some of them will have 5, but neither of them will have enough to make a complete one. Okay? So this just created a barrier to fertilization. Is this prezygotic or postzygotic? All right, yeah, postzygotic. Maybe there might be some other ones, but this would be a postzygotic barrier. All right, so through polyploidy, this is called autopolyploidy, it created a barrier to fertilization, and then a new species could arise from this.
So when it's infertile after the polyploidy is auto.
So autopolyploidy is one individual doubling its chromosomes. So this line to the right would be our autopolyploid. And it's now a different species than, so this would be species 2, this is species 1, our original species. And they cannot make fertile offspring. Okay? Generally this happens in plants, so animals don't have polyploidy events as often as plants would. Okay, so let's go to this other side now. So 2n equals 6, 2n equals 4. These are what type of cells? Are they somatic cells or gametes? Yeah, these are somatic cells, right? Because they're diploid. Okay, so they'll go through meiosis, though. And let's say they do hybridize. What's the ploidy of this new cell going to be?
Fat.
Okay. Is that fertile? No, it's not fertile because it has an odd number of chromosomes. When it tries to go through meiosis, they can't split evenly. Okay? But what if it went through a polyploidy event? Blow your mind?
Yes.
Now it is 4n equals 10. So can this produce viable gametes?
Yes.
Yes, all right. So this is called allopolyploidy.
So how does the polyploid event happen again?
It's just through a random error in meiosis, where the chromosomes, rather than separating, they all just go together to one side.
Gotcha. Okay.
And for plants, it appears that when that happens, it's much more viable than in animals, where it usually ends in a termination. Okay, this is important. It affects your everyday life. Let me tell you why. Yeah, I'll bring a watermelon. It'll be the prize. Okay, so speciation can occur. Again, it's a two-part process. What was the first part we talked about last time?
Geographical separation.
Some sort of separation, yep. Which reproductive isolation. Okay, and then what was the second part?
Wait.
Reinforcement, good. Okay, so natural selection, if they're separated, natural selection would then reinforce that separation. All right, these are two different ways in which this can occur. Allopatric means geographic. Oops. And then sympatric means they're still in the same area. I don't know how to say that, but.
Do you happen to know if sympatric literally just means same area?
Yes, it does. Allo means different. Okay. Patri refers to where you're from.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So when Google made Google Allo, they're just trying to be different.
Say again?
Google's little messaging app that no one cared about.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm a Zennial. That's my time. Okay, anyway. So an example, well, actually, why don't I have you guys do this? All right, you and your neighbor come up with a scenario. Speciation, however, yeah, it occurs in the same location. So of the barriers which we've talked about before to reproduction, which of those could occur in a sympatric scenario? Discuss. Oop, are there no more?
What was that again?
We've got ecological isolation. What were some other ones?
Sexual isolation. Like mechanical, sorry.
Mechanical.
Isolation.
Okay. So yeah, ecological or habitat, we'll put those two together.
Temporal also.
Would mechanical be like a Great Danish Chihuahua?
I think you can still make those, but
Artificially, not naturally.
well, they're
It definitely
artificial. Okay, yeah, if they started breeding at different times of the year, different times of the day, somehow that could separate populations. Yeah.
So, to be on mechanical isolation, do they need to be different species, or?
Well, they could just have, again, populations that somehow, maybe a mutation arises, which makes for a morphological difference, which could prevent mating. Yeah.
So, going back to mechanical, I thought mechanical isolation was that they physically can't get together and mate.
Yes.
So like a Great Danish Chihuahua, they can't by themselves do that.
True. Yeah, that would be a good example, except it's artificial, so we kind of set it up to fail.
Oh.
You know. Anyway.
Interesting.
All right. Any other ones? There's more. Yeah, behavioral. All right. So behaviors could adapt or could arise. That could produce separation within an area as well. Okay, anything else? I know there were some other ones that were not necessarily prezygotic. Okay, if they're, all right, so what process did we just talk about which produced gametic isolation?
Polyploid.
Yeah, so polyploidy.
Isn't it only polyploidy?
Well, both processes could lead to speciation. Yeah. Okay, what about sexual selection? Okay, yeah, you could have sexual selection within a population. Or maybe different populations are arising because different traits are being sexually selected. So that could possibly occur as well. Okay, good. The thing about sympatric speciation, though, it is much harder to show. that it occurred than allopatric speciation. Allopatric speciation is simple. It's like we can see in the geology that this mountain range formed and that separated species. This is much harder to show. In fact, some biologists say sympatric speciation doesn't exist. That if a population is in the same area, they're going to interbreed and speciation couldn't occur. Except for polyploidy, that has been demonstrated. Yeah.
So let's say that, I don't know.
Adaptive radiation. This is where you have niches which are unoccupied, which allows for one species to diverge into many species, or one population into many populations. And a good example of this is the dinosaurs and mammals coexisted for quite some time through the Jurassic and Cretaceous. There were small mammals which existed. But at this event, what did you have occurring? The dinosaurs went extinct, right? And so that opened up a lot of ecological niches that the dinosaurs were previously inhabiting. So most of the dinosaurs were these large land animals, and they had their own ecological niches that they filled. But once they were removed, mammals and birds, there are a lot more birds actually than mammals, so it should be larger. But mammals and birds then filled those niches and radiated in their speciation. So this is an example of macroevolution occurring. A similar thing happened with the Galapagos finches, where you had one population which migrated to these islands. Because nothing was really there, and it was a relatively new island, there were no bird species there, these finches then radiated and filled all these different niches that were open. So that's adaptive radiation. Okay, adaptive radiation can act with character displacement to further isolate speciation mechanisms. So character displacement is also demonstrated in these Galapagos finches in their beak length. Okay, and so if we're looking at frequency, that's what this funny F is on the left here, and differences in beak length. So this species 1 has this range of beak lengths, and it's found on island 1. This second species has this range of beak lengths, and it's found in island 2. So what do you think would occur on island 3? Which has both species 1 and 2. Talk to your neighbor. So there is a considerable amount of frequencies in which their beak lengths overlap. So I highlighted that in yellow. Okay? So what did you draw, or what did you hypothesize on this third graph? Okay, they would separate. Good. So species 1 would have a frequency distribution like that, and species 2 would have a frequency distribution like that. And so the overlap would diminish because the two species are competing for the same resources on this island based on their beak lengths. And so that's what character displacement is. That when in the presence of a species that has some sort of overlap in resource use, the competition will result in a change in the traits so they no longer compete. And that's because this species, species 1, is better at utilizing seeds that are bigger. Species 2 is better at utilizing seeds that are smaller. and those intermediates are going to be replaced. Okay? What sort of selection event occurred in these individual populations of our 3 types of natural selection? No, not disruptive. So what happened to this red one and what happened to this green one? No. Stabilizing, right? This population decreased its... Yeah, they're already 2 different species. So this population increased in its use in those bigger seeds, and so did this one in its smaller seeds. So then it didn't have the overlap.
So you're saying we had 2 stabilizing selections?
Correct, right. And that's where the confusion was. Okay, good. All right, that